I find myself constantly drawn back into Dragon Ball as a franchise. While many criticize many of the modern developments it has taken, I have always been more positive towards it. Dragon Ball to me is, at worst, harmless fun and, at best, genuinely amazing and inspiring. As you can imagine, I often find myself being quite accepting and positive towards modern Dragon Ball ideas. Many of the more hardcore fans decry as being rather weak. So when Super introduced Jiren as the primary antagonist of its final arc, I was quite excited, hyped even. A genuinely imposing, muscular character was just what I wanted to see again, since Super had featured a lot of leaner designs. But as you all probably know, the twists and turns of his character eventually became one of the biggest criticisms of said arc and the series in general. And while I am not as critical towards it, it is hard to deny that Jiren was quite mishandled by both Toei and Toyotaro in the anime and manga respectively. So for today, I thought it might be fun to revisit Steroid ET and have a go at both understanding what went wrong and how one could have fixed it. Today, we are fixing Jiren. Now, in order to fix something, we first have to understand what exactly went wrong. Jiren is introduced as one of the 10 fighters defending the 11th universe in the Tournament of Power, a grand battle royale between elite fighters to determine which universe gets deleted by the All-Father Zeno. He is quiet, proud, and most importantly, immensely strong. It is later revealed that he acquired this strength to defeat an evil demon that killed his parents when he was a child, and later also defeated the master that took Jiren in and trained him. After his friends had either been killed as well or just left, Jiren decided to only believe in his own strength and not trust anyone anymore. He serves the 11th God of Destruction Belmod and his Pride Troopers in hopes of receiving the chance to wish his master back with the Super Dragon Balls, a wish that would be possible if he wins the tournament. Throughout the arc, he grows more and more frustrated with his team's weakness and eventually loses his calm demeanor as his anxiety and trauma get the better of him, before he is finally overcome and defeated by Universe 7 and their trust. You've probably noticed something. This story could be done right. On paper, this isn't all that horrible if done correctly. But unfortunately, it wasn't, for a few reasons. In the anime, due to how Super was produced, most episodes did not share scriptwriters, which meant that the week-by-week plot was handed to a different writer each time. This quite often leads to inconsistencies and problems, the most infamous example being the ending of the Future Trunks arc. And Jiren was also hit by this. He seemingly completely switches character between episodes, sometimes being prideful, sometimes downright evil and mean, and other times devoted to justice. His overall portrayal was incredibly inconsistent and confusing, not to mention that a lot of his screen time was only at the very end of the arc, giving the viewers very little chance to probably care about him. Same with his backstory, it was essentially just all in one episode. The manga, meanwhile, had a much more consistent version of Jiren and also handled his introduction way better, but because Toyotaro seemingly wanted to move on to the new content past Broly, the Tournament of Power is incredibly rushed in his manga, and consequently, so is Jiren. So as you can see, Jiren's problem is as much about presentation as it is about substance. Now that we know what's wrong, we can begin constructing our hypothetical fixed version of the character. First though, we need to quickly figure out what we want to keep from his original portrayal. I think his core theme being the nature of strength is a pretty solid choice, since omitting that would mean writing a completely different character and we are fixing Jiren, not deleting him. That might also be an approach, but that's a different video. Also, his backstory is mostly fine and can work if we integrate it properly, so let's keep that in. And lastly, out of many character traits that he is given in various episodes, I would want to focus on his desire for justice, because that will make him a more sympathetic character for reasons I will get into. With all this preparation done, this is the Jiren I propose. Let's have his introduction work like in the manga. The Pride Troopers get overwhelmed by an enemy when he swoops in and one-shots it, after which we add a scene of him being celebrated but only reciprocating reluctantly. This establishes three important things. Jiren is strong as fuck, since he one-shots an enemy even Toppo, who was shown to be Goku's equal, couldn't beat. This immediately establishes him as a real threat to Universe 7 and makes him a believable antagonist. Second, it shows that Jiren is liked known and celebrated as a hero of justice in his own universe. With justice being integral to his character, this is important in showing because this way we believe that he actually does justicing, if that's a word. And lastly, him not joining in on the celebrations hints at a more mellow side of his. Because this Jiren would have had quite a different tone to him. Rather than having be arrogant and prideful, he would be a melancholic man, deeply devoted to justice. This would have its roots in a single key change to his backstory. This Jiren already became strong and killed the demon that murdered his loved ones years prior to Super's events all by himself. Essentially, his story is already done. This means that he was now left with immense strength and no goal to pursue with it. So, he dedicated himself to keeping the peace in Universe 11 since he realized that it was the only thing giving him even a modicum of joy after he had already fulfilled his dream. So, he allied himself with the Pride Troopers, knowing that this would be the easiest way to seek out evildoers and vanquish them. And while this hero work is important to him, he still feels that there is some emptiness inside of him that the smiles of the people he saves can only fill for a short time. He's essentially left directionless after fulfilling his revenge, and so he obsesses over justice because it's the only thing that makes his existence feel meaningful. So, when he hears of the Tournament of Power, he immediately accepts, hoping that protecting the universe itself might fill the hole in his heart. This capitalizes on the biggest untapped potential of the tournament. Because it forces people to fight for their survival, it doesn't really need an outright villainous evil character. Rather, it would be more interesting to have Jiren simply be a secondary focal point of the story, acting as a hurdle and an antagonist, but not due to malice, but for the simple and understandable wish to survive. This makes the conflict immediately more interesting and engaging, because Jiren isn't wrong to fight against our guys, he just wants to protect his universe. Before the tournament, I would like to add a few scenes of Jiren just interacting with the other troopers, establishing their dynamic, which would be admiration from the troopers and polite distance from Jiren. Also, one could further hint at Jiren's melancholic view of his work, saying something similar to Spider-Man's great power, great responsibility. Him being both obsessed with justice, but doing it also partially because he doesn't know what else to do with his strength, would make him both flawed and sympathetic. As the tournament starts, one thing needs to be the case for its entirety. Jiren needs screen time. He is the main force Goku and friends have to come up against, so he should be a very common cutaway, possibly even the most common. His first action should be similar to the manga, him throwing out fools left and right. He would not want to waste time when the universe's survival is on the line. This would again solidify him as a major threat, but have him be more in the background so that other universes and their characters get their chance to square up with Goku and the crew. Another constant throughout the tournament should be that we get his backstory drip-fed to us. A major issue in the anime is that his entire story is essentially contained within one episode. So in this fixed version, we could have him show us quick flashbacks every few episodes to keep both the investment and the intrigue going. For example, in this first phase, as he scouts out the arena, he could look up and get blinded by the sun-like orb in the sky, which could remind him of the harsh sun of his home desert planet. A perfect excuse to throw in a quick little glimpse into his childhood and family. In this first stage, I imagine Universe 7 could be fighting some enemy who would give them a lot of trouble, so much so that they essentially call out for Goku, Vegeta and Gohan to help them out. As those three get ready to fight and size up their enemy, saying, "This will be tough," or something that indicates the strength, said enemy makes the mistake of entering Jiren's sight, who then rushes over and instinctively defeats him. I imagine this scene similarly to how he handled Majikayo in the anime, with everyone shocked at him winning with such ease. However, here we introduce a twist. The fighter Jiren eliminated was the last one for his universe. So, we get the tournament's first erasure, making Jiren indirectly responsible for the deaths of possibly trillions of life forms. Here, Jiren would express his first strong emotion in the tournament so far. Pure anger and frustration that the Zeno's toying led to this. It's here where he makes up his mind and develops. he now has a purpose for his strength again. He will win and use the Super Dragon Balls to make Universe 11 immune to Zeno's erasure, so that they never have to fear the tiny tyrants again. Yes, I know it's unclear if this will be possible, but because we know nearly nothing about the connection between the Super Dragon Balls and the Zeno's power, and because this is already kinda going into fanfic territory as is, I think this assumption isn't too scandalous. If you have other ideas that you prefer for this wish, let me know down below. Additionally, seeing these deaths would trigger a second short flashback, this time showing us the death of Jiren's family, as this massacre would remind him of that. The tournament would continue like the anime for a while, with Jiren eventually deciding that Goku is a threat and trying to eliminate him, and Goku in turn unlocking Ultra Instinct Omen, just like we all saw in the special. Later, as Goku has his moment with Roshi, Jiren, who is watching Goku to observe his growth, is reminded of his own master and the times they shared. Flashback time! Let's make that master relevant. Let's make us care. Things proceed as they did in the anime, albeit hopefully shortened since the arc is very long and it dilutes any good writing within it. Until Jiren is left as the last man standing against Universe 7, this continues. His comrades losing one by one and Toppo abandoning justice especially begins frustrating Jiren, reminding him of how his master died and his friends abandoned him. Another flashback. This validates his belief that he alone must deliver justice, for only he is strong and consequent enough. Filled with grim determination and frustration, he battles our heroes as he does in the anime. Things don't change much from here on out. He gets more and more angry as the only thing he defined himself by, his strength, begins being put into question, eventually sinking to his lowest points, where he himself abandons justice and attacks Goku's friends. After being beaten by Universe 7 though, he begins to slowly understand that the hole in his heart wasn't a yearning for justice per se, but rather a cry for trust and cooperation, a longing for the friendship and camaraderie he had lost when his friends died. And so the ending plays out the same, as Jiren realizes that he does not have to do things alone and that he can move on and forge new connections. This is as far as I want to go today. Yes, I know this is somewhat fanfiction-y and I know one could change a lot more things about it, but if there's one thing I want you to take away from this quick little video, it's this. Notice just how minor the changes are. I basically only shifted the order of events and some context around, and added 1 or 2 scenes, but yet the result sounds arguably a lot more satisfying than what we ended up getting, at least I think so. So the moral of the story is, the execution of an idea is just as important as the idea itself. Jiren is, on paper, an okay character, but he ends up being subpar due to unfortunate circumstances both around the anime's production and the manga's writing. But had he been given the apt treatment and had he been presented better, he could have worked. So essentially all I want to say is, don't just look at substance, also look at execution. Thank you all for watching, take care and I'll see you next time. Bye, be safe.